Senator. Senator Booker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both to you and the ranking member for holding this committee. And thanks to all five of the witnesses here. It takes a lot to be here, especially two of our younger witnesses. I was terrified in speaking in front of crowds when I was both of your ages, and it just is extraordinary to me, the raw truth and testimony that you've shared with folks here. Ms. Robinson, I just want to start with you because I still live in this little bit of a bizarro world where I have arguments with friends. I'm not talking about political friends. I'm talking about folks from my community who think I'm wrong when I say in most states in America, a gay American could post their pictures of their wedding online and then the next day be fired from their job. I mean, literally most Americans think that this has already been accomplished somehow, that you, just by being gay, you can be discriminated against at your workplace, you could be discriminated against in public accommodations, you can be discriminated against in getting access to financial means that most Americans take for granted. You could be discriminated against even serving on a jury. Could you speak to that for a moment? And just like, I know we're talking about a lot of issues here, but that to me seems outrageous.
Absolutely. This is very real and why we need the Equality Act. What the Equality Act would do is make explicit non-discrimination protections across race, gender, sex, and sexual orientation. That's currently not something that exists. You know, one of the reasons that we did the state of emergency is to lift up this crisis and make it clear, especially as Americans are thinking about where they're going to go to school or taking new jobs across the country. We had to make it clear that there is a dizzying patchwork of protections for LGBTQ plus people across this country. In service of that, we issued a guidebook that includes Know Your Rights resources, where you can go to file complaints, and then also tools to navigate some of these more hostile states.
And if I can just interrupt you, because I had the privilege of serving with John Lewis, and I'm happy with Senator Merkley and Senator Baldwin to lead on this bill in the Senate, but on the House side, John Lewis was leading on this bill. And when you asked him, here's this, Christian, Southern, black elder man, and he would say that these issues are so similar to what he was dealing with. The same things people said about why they didn't want black people in their restaurant, why they didn't want black people to marry white people, why they didn't feel comfortable with their private business. Why do I have to hire black people? People use religious excuses, cultural excuses. This is my own beliefs that it's wrong. The Bible says it's wrong. It is amazing to me that growing up with two black parents talking about the struggles of the time, who did get denied jobs and promotions, who did see violence and threats, who told stories about white people and black people that were attacked for standing up for equal rights for African Americans. Am I wrong to draw this basic parallel of human dignity, whether it's gender discrimination, discrimination against LGBTQ Americans, black Americans, Muslim Americans? Is there a line that goes through about the basic right to be an American and have equal rights?
Absolutely. This is fundamentally a civil rights issue. The Equality Act has to be signed into law to give us all equal access to that American dream. And I think the other through line here is that oftentimes we've been able to find ourselves on the right side of these social issues. For example, the same things that they're saying about trans people today, they were saying about lesbian gay people 20 years ago, and now the Respect for Marriage Act is the law of the land. The same horrific things they're saying about trans people today, they were saying it about people that lived with HIV and AIDS 30 years ago, and now we've significantly reduced stigma, and we're on our way to ending that epidemic in this generation, in our lifetimes. We can make change on this, but it starts by opening our hearts and minds and acknowledging that in the story of America, so many of us have faced discrimination. When we've come together, when we fought and understood that an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us, we've been able to change the course of history.
I was very moved by your testimony, Ms. Gaines, especially because I don't think most Americans understand what it is to be an elite athlete. I'm here because I was a Division I player, fundamentally 50, 60-hour work weeks on my athletic skills. The first year I stepped out, you might have had this experience yourself, I felt like, oh my God, this is how civilians sort of live when you have just so much time. You're not getting up and doing practices. The experiences you had, And the picture that my colleague, Senator Hawley, showed is just outrageous, deplorable, and unacceptable for you talking to your truth. Ms. Walker, what stuns me about what we're seeing right now is a lot of Americans don't understand how widespread the bullying and the threats and the violence are, not just to those of us who are in elite competition, who often face dealing with these issues as the NCAA is dealing with them, but the widespread nature. I think, Ms. Robinson, in your longer testimony, you were talking about the unbelievable, something's happened in the last decade of this rise of threats and bullying and violence and murder of LGBTQ Americans at levels that are frightening to me. And Ms. Walker, I want to just end with you because I don't think most Americans understand what it's like to try to just live your truth for the average American that is LGBTQ or trans. Could you just tell one more time, as you've listened to the testimony today, just how it feels just to be a teenager living your life as you do?
Yeah, it definitely is a struggle day to day. Growing up in a conservative state where there is a lot of misinformation spread about what trans people are, what we do, and how we're just like everybody else, it's definitely been hard for me. Like I said in my testimony, I was severely bullied in middle school to the point where I had to drop out of public school because there was so much hate every day in the hallways, being misgendered, being dead named, and it got to physical violence at a certain point. And so I had to drop out of public school for that year, and the school wasn't doing anything about it.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the latitude. And again, if this is about protecting our children, the stories of Ms. Walker and other trans children, it just needs to be heard about what you're enduring. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Booker. Senator Cruz.